Today we're going to take a look back at a piece of literature that has sold millions of copies. A book that has guided thousands of lost, wayward sheep through the years. Wait, what? No, not that book.
We're talking about Pokemon. You know, pocket monsters.
Today we're going to take a look at the Pokemon Trainer's Manual, aka the instruction booklet that came with the Generation 1 Pokemon games. So first off, let me explain. It used to be back in the olden days, every game used to come with an instruction booklet. And believe it or not, the instruction booklet told you how to play the game. And trust me, you typically needed these because the games themselves didn't actually tell you oftentimes how to do all of the controls or all of the game's mechanics within the game itself. So you actually needed the instruction booklet oftentimes just to figure out how to do basic game mechanics. I'm looking at you, Oracles of Ages Zelda game on the Game Boy Color. I had to use the instruction booklet to find out you could bomb walls. Every Generation 1 Pokemon game shipped with this manual, so that would be your red version, your blue version, and your yellow version. And even for the time, this was a pretty impressive piece of literature. You can't really mention this instruction booklet without just commenting on the aesthetic of it. It's very on theme. It looks like a journal that some traveler has been keeping. And it really just adds to the ambiance and the sense of adventure that the Generation 1 games had. Really, you were using your imagination a lot of time to fill in the blanks of how the world was really looking. And the supplemental material really helped you just kind of get the theme of what your imagination was picturing in your head as you were walking through the world. Let's just start flipping through this thing. So right off the bat, when you open this booklet up, it's like pretty much any other book. You got the table of contents here. There's a box at the bottom of the first page that kind of explains the differences of what is blue version versus what is red and what are the differences. The story page is something that is pretty much included in all instruction booklets at the time. A lot of times even the story of some of these games wasn't very clear within the game itself, and you really did rely on the instruction booklet, the back of the box, to fill in the gaps of what is the story of this game that you're now playing. Not that Pokemon's story is all that deep, and not that you even really needed this page to get a grasp of what your objective is in the game. I do find it funny though that how they specify you're an 11-year-old boy and you live in Pallet Town with your mom, but no dad. That is something that I really like about Generation 1 and 2 of Pokemon though, this watercolor aesthetic that the official art used to have. It's probably mostly nostalgia, but I really love this art style. So on the next two pages we have what they call a world map and what I would call a flow chart of how the map in the world of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow is set up. I do remember as a kid this map kind of confused the crap out of me. I think they could have done a little better with it, you know, by maybe actually overlaying it over the top of an actual map. But as an adult, you know, it's fine. It'll tell you how to get from one spot to the other. And you gotta love that groovy Charmander in the corner. The world of Pokemon. Sorry guys, that's probably the worst Professor Oak impression ever. The next two pages go over kind of the basics of the game, because you gotta remember at the time, Pokemon was actually brand new to America anyways at this point. So no one knew what a Pokemon was. And the next page goes over the objectives of the game. Defeat the 8 Pokemon gym leaders, complete your Pokedex, because at the time there was only 150 Pokemon in the game, so it was actually kind of doable. Not that I've ever managed to do it, mind you. And I do just want to point out the awesome little taping of a note to the journal that we're reading. You know, they didn't have to do that, but it really adds a lot of charm to this booklet. Page number 8 is just using the controls. It's got a picture of a Game Boy. Pretty impressive how few buttons the Game Boy had on it at the time. The A button, the B button, the control pad, and then start and select. Page 9, getting started, new game, continue, option, just all the basics. Page 10 starts looking at the menu screen within the game itself. You would push the start button to open up the menu, and it details the Pokedex option and all the options within there. It has some cool nostalgic screenshots here of what the Pokedex looked like back then, and actually what the in-game map looked like as well. Page 11 details the Pokemon menu and the stats that each Pokemon has. It is worth pointing out that in Generation 1, the special stat was combined, so it was just one stat. There was no special attack, special defense split yet, which made the first generation of Pokemon very imbalanced, with special attackers being really strong. Page 12 details the item menu, the name menu, which is where you would look to see how many badges you had, your money, and then how to save the game as well. Page 13 goes over the options menu, so text speed, battle animation, and the battle style. Even in Gen 1, you could pick between shift and set. Page 14, though, really kicks off one of the things that makes this instruction manual so cool. It's actually almost got a mini player's guide within here, just detailing and going over the first parts of the game. I don't know if this is because I thought that we were stupid over here and we just really needed the help or what, but it's really cool nonetheless. You gotta love this little blurb. Talk to everyone you see. People will help you along the way, so don't miss anything. And then the picture shows this lady saying, I'm raising Pokemon too. Very helpful. It's got a nice handy map of Pallet Town here though. There's your house, and then next to that is your rival's house, and then south of that is Professor Oak's lab. And every house has a sign in front of it, so you know whose house it is. And the last little blob here on page 15 just goes over selecting your first Pokemon, which is your starter, so Squirtle, Charmander, Bulbasaur. And there's even a little pro tip from Oak down there, Oak's memo, just telling you, hey, Bulbasaur is probably the one you want to take if you don't want to get your butt kicked by Brock. Because if you got yourself to Brock and you had a Charmander and you were wondering why you were getting your butt kicked, you'd probably go to the instruction manual, find this little thing, and realize, hey, maybe I need to restart and take a Bulbasaur. Page 16 goes over route number 1, you know, the whole danger wild Pokemon. This is the first area where you can get into battles. It's got a picture of Rattata there, trademark, and has kind of a cool little blurb, kind of like a Pokedex entry for it. Page 17 details the flow of battle, another Pokedex entry for Pidgey, also trademark. And another Oak's memo just letting you know that even though the game is about catching Pokemon, you can't actually catch them yet, and this is the requirement before you can do it. Although it's actually lying when you look at this, because it says when you get to Viridian City, you may purchase Pokeballs at the Pokemart. But all us people who played this game know that's not true, because you gotta deliver Oak's package first before you can buy those Pokeballs. Page 18 has a map of Viridian City. It explicitly tells you that the gym here is closed and you can't get into it. It shows you where the Pokemart and the Pokemon Center are, and it even has a cute little list of all the items you can buy at the Pokemart. And it has an Oak's memo here that tells you about the package you need to deliver back to Oak before you can buy the Pokeballs. Page 19 just goes over healing at the Pokemon Center. It goes over your computer and all the features of it. And something in here that I've kind of forgotten was even a thing is the Professor Oak's computer option, where when you would pick it, you would actually call Professor Oak up on the computer, and he would give you an evaluation based on how many Pokemon you had caught. Moving on to page 20 here, route number 2, which is the route north of Viridian City that leads to Viridian Forest. And this just helps further cement kind of the tutorial of this whole thing, because it even shows you here that these cut trees, you can't get past them until you get later in the game. It tells you if you want to get to all this other stuff on the map that you can see in the instruction manual, it's there, but remember to come back for it later on. And then, you know, there's Caterpie there. Trademark. It's kind of funny though that it tells you make sure you build your Pokemon levels up before traveling here, because those Caterpies are pretty dangerous. And then at last on page 21 they finally detail how do you catch a Pokemon, and it's got this kind of cute little flow chart of no, do not throw the Pokeball if it's not hurt yet, and then a yes over here of yes, do it, it's weak, get it. And then Oak's memo at the bottom telling you, by the way, you might need to throw lots of balls, but only sometimes. The next page is on the infamous Viridian Forest. It's got Kakuna on there, trademark. And then the opposite page goes over trainer battles, because there haven't been any in the game up until this point, unless you count your rival. And then Oak's memo on this page is literally telling you to do the thing that no one ever did, which is raise up 6 Pokemon of different types evenly. I'm looking at you, Billy. You can't just use Charizard. It is not acceptable having a level 88 Charizard at the Elite Four. Don't do that. That's lame. There's 151 Pokemon and you're just using Charizard. And before we flip the page, I do need to give a shout out to the best Pikachu, Gen 1 Fat Pikachu. This is Pikachu, my friends. This is what he's supposed to look like. I hate skinny Pikachu. I hate modern Pikachu. Moving on. Page 24 goes over Pewter City. This is where the first gym leader Brock is at. It also details the museum, which is something that really made Pokemon feel like it was a world all of its own. It was believable because there were these random things that you could find in the real world, and they don't add a lot to the gameplay, but they just add a lot to the ambiance of the world to make it feel like it's something that really exists somewhere. And then on the next page, it actually goes into detail on how to beat Brock. It shows you the level of his Pokemon, so he's got a level 12 Geodude, a level 14 Onix, and it still cracks me up that every single one of these Pokemon names has a trademark next to it. And then there's an Oak's memo even at the bottom here telling you And I'll spare you my oak voice this time. By the way, if you're using Charmander, a fire type, you're gonna have a hard time with this one. And that's pretty much the conclusion of the mini walkthrough in this thing. Page 26 just details the adventure goes on. There is so much more than what has been described in the previous pages. You must talk to all the people you find throughout your quest to become the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. That's what you've been doing wrong all this time, people. You have not been talking to all of the people. Page 27 shows you all the gym leaders, the name of the badge they give you, and what the badge does. And it's kind of cool that the very last gym leader, which is Giovanni, you know, he's all shaded out because you're not supposed to know who he is. Spoiler alert, he's a bad dude. Page 28 and 29 go over some hints for how to do certain things in the game. What are hidden machines? How can you change that ridiculous Pokemon nickname that you don't like? And how to stop evolution if you don't want to let go of your favorite buddies. Pages 30 and 31 detail how to add Pokemon to your collection. Get 1 wild Pokemon. Get 2 events, so the game corner, the safari zone. And then get 3 trade with your friends, if you have any. Or trade with yourself, if you're rich. Pages 32 and 33 go over the types of Pokemon, and page 33 has a very detailed breakdown of which types are good against what and which ones resist what. Just very useful, because at the time you didn't have the internet to look stuff up. Pages 34 and 35 go over the battle screen in greater detail. Pages 36 through 39 detail the game's connectivity options. You needed a Game Boy link cable to do any of this stuff, and then 2 copies of the game and 2 Game Boys. But the feature set was pretty robust for the time. You could trade your Pokemon, you could battle. The next 4 pages really serve as an index for some of the items in the game, some descriptions of some of the battle attacks. And then the last 10 pages have a partially completed Pokedex for you to look at, and you could fill them out as you got more within the game. This was pretty cool, because as a kid, you really didn't know what all the Pokemon looked like. It kind of gave you a sneak peek at what was later in the game, and gave you an idea of what you were working towards. Slowpoke, though, he's looking like he might be having a bad time. You okay there, little buddy? Page 54 has the finest specimen known to man, number 129, Magikarp, trademark. Look at the majestic beauty of that creature. The way he lifts his head, blessing us with his presence. It's a beautiful sight. And it wouldn't be a 90s Nintendo instruction manual without the official Nintendo authorized repair center being advertised in the back. And the last 2 pages have a very nostalgic spread for an offer for the official Nintendo Power Player's Guide for these games. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this nostalgic deep dive into the greatest gaming manual known to man if you were 10 in 1998. I really enjoyed looking through it again. It just reminds me of that era in video game history and that era in Pokemon history when things were just a bit more simple. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I would really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Boxhead Baron out.